Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett along with Kent Myers. We're here every week meeting interesting people, dealing with topical issues, and we've got a series of candidates coming in the next few weeks.
We do indeed. This is the first of two shows bringing the Democratic runoff contenders for the State School Superintendent race to our viewers, to let them get acquainted with both Freda Deskin today and John Cox next week. After that, we will bring two more candidates for the Senate District 40 Republican runoff with Irvin Yen and Steve Kern. They'll follow these two shows. So for the next 2 weeks, we'll be talking about education. 2 weeks after that, we'll be talking about Senate District 40.
Yeah, there's no shortage of topics on either category.
No, and they're both, all candidates are facing a runoff here at the last of August. And we thought our viewers would like to hear from them.
Freda Deskin, today's visit on The Verdict. We'll be right back.
One of the reasons why I moved to Rockaway is because it's such a diverse culture and different ethnicities. And my camera has opened some doors to really meet people that I probably wouldn't have gotten to meet without it. I'm Beth Perkins, I'm a professional photographer, and I'm Chickasaw. It came in as like a mini tidal wave. Everything sustainable had just disappeared in one swoop, and I just underestimated this power, and I realized really how little we are in this whole scheme of things and how quickly things can go bad. My community is still rebuilding, and for them to just show up out of the blue and just start clearing out my house was, I'm not one that likes to ask for help. So for someone to come and do that for me it was really touching and humbling. I've thought about the history of the Chickasaws and what they went through as far as relocating and losing their homes and having to rebuild and to thrive in the end after all of that is just a true testament to the Chickasaw strength. And I try and draw from that and remember that that's a part of who I am.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
People have been talking about energy independence for a long time. It's always been popular, but today it's possible.
We have an enormous supply of oil and gas in the United States, much more than we thought just a few years ago.
New technology, massive new discoveries, largely made by Oklahoma companies. It literally changes everything.
And Oklahoma is leading the charge. Go watch this video to see why. Energy independence starts with us.
We're back on The Verdict. Glad you're with us. And Kent Myers is here to give us the update on our first guest.
We're really pleased today to welcome to the set of The Verdict for the first time, but we sure hope it's not the last, Freda Deskin. Dr. Deskin is a candidate in the Democratic side of the ballot for State School Superintendent, the runoff election being the latter part of August, and we wanted to have her on now so that you get a chance to be acquainted with her. Hopefully you'll get information you'll find useful when you go to the polls. Dr. Deskin graduated from Lexington High School. She did her undergraduate work at the University of Central Oklahoma, then called Central State, I think, University. She did both her master's and her PhD work at the University of Oklahoma. She told us before the show began that just in a day or so she will begin her 44th year in education in Oklahoma. And she's truly occupied almost every position you can think of, from teacher to principal to superintendent to college adjunct professor to college dean. You name it, she's done it. She also has stepped outside the confines of the classroom and she was named Oklahoma's finalist for the NASA Teacher in Space program a number of years ago. She's won many awards and accolades for her work in education. This is her first visit with us, as I indicated, but we're sure glad to have you, and welcome.
Thank you, my pleasure.
I assume you've been traveling the state, meeting people, and you've got to give some sort of introductory speech. So tell people why you're running for state superintendent.
Well, I'm running for state superintendent because I believe that every child in this state deserves a champion, and I don't believe they've had one for a while. My history and of my profession and my career is one of being a champion for children. I also believe I'm the best qualified. I think we have a lot of issues in Oklahoma education and, in fact, education across the nation that are new, and many of them are divisive, and a lot of them are not what is in the best interest of our children.
I noticed from your resume that you were a founding person in the public, and I underline public, Aztec Charter School. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. In Oklahoma, which a lot of people don't realize, all the charters in Oklahoma are public charters, and they're only in our inner city, Oklahoma City and Tulsa. I worked with some adjudicated youth when I was a dean at Oklahoma City University, worked with them in the summer, and got to know that area and some of the needs and the fact that about half the students in Oklahoma City drop out of school. And I'm very concerned about the number of people that we incarcerate in this state. So I saw a population of young people in Oklahoma City whose needs were not being met to the fullest level. And so I founded Aztec, the Advanced Science and Technology Education Charter School, where we serve almost 100% children in poverty and almost 100% diversity. But our graduating class this past year had every one of them were accepted to a university or a college, and every one of them received a scholarship of some kind to a university. So we try to meet the needs of those students, whether it's with providing them with clothing or school supplies, food pantry, and we would much rather see these young people in Oklahoma City being contributing members of society and than to imprison them or to condemn them to a life of not having an education and what comes along with that.
Let me go back to something you said rather quickly, but I'd like for you to explain it a little bit.
Sure.
ASTEC is Aztec.
Yes.
What do those letters represent?
Advanced Science and Technology Education Charter. So all of our students are required to take technology as a core subject every day, and technology is integrated. And we say we're a STEM school, science, technology, engineering, math, but we've added the A because we believe the arts are very important, the liberal arts. So we just integrate the arts with technology and science and math and the other subjects.
And how many students would you have graduate in a given year?
We have 6th through 12th grade, excuse me, and we have 800 students. We have about 100 per grade.
And where is the school located?
We are located in an old Shepherd Mall, in the east end of Shepherd Mall, and we bus our students every hour on the hour to a church to provide them with physical education and sports.
I spent a lot of time in the old Shepherd Mall because way back when it wasn't a mall. It was called Shepherd's Farm. And I lived across the street from Shepherd's Farm, and that was a great place to go play.
You are dating yourself
and
now.
get it. Well, I don't care. They all know.
Freda, you've had opportunities to look at everything from pre-K all the way up to 8th through 12th grade education. What are we doing right in Oklahoma? Where do we need to build on?
Well, one of the things I would say is, my roots are in rural Oklahoma. I was raised in rural Oklahoma. I've taught in a K-8 school, but I've also taught in the suburban area and the inner city. And while we have a lot of the same challenges in the inner city and in rural areas, we have a lot of differences as well. So all across the state, I see some really positive things that are happening in education that does not get promoted or talked about much. We've been focused on the negative, and there is a lot of positive. Some of the things we're doing right is our steps in early childhood education, but we still are not offering every child full-day kindergarten in the state. But we also, I think, in our teacher training at our universities, the ones that I'm familiar with, which are a number of them, I think are light years ahead of what they were a few years ago in preparing teachers. We've just got to keep those teachers and recruit more high-quality teachers into the profession.
Is it different educating a kid in an urban environment than a rural environment?
I think in many cases it is. In a rural environment, you automatically have a community. And in an inner city, often those children don't have a sense of community because it is such a large environment, and they may not be even in the same neighborhood to play with the children they go to school with. So I think it's important, and it's what we've tried to do, is to create that small community environment for our children so that we do know their names and they do feel that security and create that sense of community.
In the city of Oklahoma City, we have 24 districts that serve kids that live in the district, and a lot of times the reputation of the city gets its name from the largest district, which is the inner city district, the Oklahoma City school system, which is actually less than half of all the kids that live in Oklahoma City. But I'm wondering, do we have too many districts? I mean, if there are 24 districts serving kids that live in Oklahoma City, and I know a lot of times people will talk about the consolidation in the rural areas. It seems to me like 24 in one city is way too many. How do you feel about consolidation, urban versus rural, and vice versa?
Well, I having been in both, I really support those rural schools. And when you think about how long those children have to be on a bus to go to another site, and you would lose very much like what we have, that site-based management and having someone on site that sees what the needs are of that community and those children, you would certainly lose that. And there have been a lot of studies done about consolidation. And under the best case scenario, we would only save 1% to 2%. But when those rural schools disappear, so does the community. Crime rate rises, death rates rise. So it is more than just a rural school, and we have most of our rural schools are doing an excellent job. So I think you look at them on a case by case of what they're providing. I do think in the inner city, creating smaller communities, that doesn't mean more districts, but smaller communities within the inner city, I believe, is a part of the answer for keeping children in school.
We're going to get to our first break. Dr. Freda Deskin is our guest. She is running for State School Board Superintendent on the Democratic ticket. We'll be right back with more after this.
When you have something important to communicate, it becomes clear that there's a lot of competition for your audience's attention. So how can your message stand out and actually resonate with your audience? Legal Graphics has the answers. The team at Legal Graphics will work with you to plan, design, and even test your presentation to ensure your message will be heard and remembered. Call Legal Graphics today to schedule an appointment. The readiness is all.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
Welcome back to the Set of the Verdict. Mick Cornett, Kent Myers, and today's guest, Dr. Freda Deskin, who was running for State School Superintendent. Dr. Deskin, you push your broad experience over all age levels. Give us some information about that.
Well, I have taught elementary school, I've taught kindergarten, 6th grade, 8th grade in a self-contained classroom. I've taught in rural schools, as I said, suburban, inner city. I was on the faculty at the University of Oklahoma where I taught teachers for 9 years. I've led more than 1,000 teacher workshops across the country, and I was recruited to Oklahoma City University to be the Dean of STEM Education. I was one of the early pioneers in STEM education. So I've truly been at all levels. I've worked with Career Tech, having a high school. We have a number of our students that, even though they're doing concurrent enrollment at a junior college or OSU, OKC, they're also taking Career Tech. So I've kind of run the gamut of all levels and all sizes of schools.
Well, in the position you're seeking, would you have significant supervisory responsibility over those various levels?
The State Superintendent of Public Instruction sits on the Regents and also for higher ed, and also sits on the Career Tech Board. So it is very critical, I think, that our next superintendent understand and brings firsthand experience.
What's the relationship between poverty and education?
Well, you know, in Oklahoma, 1 in 4 of our children lives in poverty. And we know that a child who starts kindergarten, who comes from poverty, will be 18 months behind their peers. If there's another language spoken in the home, you can add several months to that. So while poverty is not an excuse, I compare it to a 100-yard dash. Some children get to start on the 75-yard line. Some children start on the starting line, and other children start at the -75-yard line. It doesn't mean they can't get there, but it means it's going to take more time, more resources, smaller classes, and understanding that their parents can't give them what they didn't have, which was a middle-class upbringing.
On your website and on your platform, you talk about school accountability. What do you mean by that?
By school accountability, I mean we have to be responsible for results to our parents, to the community, and so to me it's helping teachers to be successful, giving them the tools that they need, and the administrators to meet those results. We have to have high expectations, and rigor doesn't come from standards, though that's a place to start. Rigor starts with the teacher in the classroom. So helping those teachers that are coming into the profession or don't understand how you get rigor in the classroom, which is first building relationships, then making learning relevant, then you add rigor. And rigor doesn't mean more homework and those kinds of things.
There's been a lot of controversy in the last year or two about Common Core and standards and statewide testing. How do you feel about all that?
Well, my doctorate's in instructional leadership and academic curriculum. I received my training as an administrator of the instructional leadership portion. I have created curriculum for a number of national groups. I've assessed standards for other states. So I personally looked at all of the core standards, and like any set of standards, you're going to have some positive things and you're going to have some negative things. You're going to need some tweaking. I think our big mistake was in the lack of communication to our communities, to our teachers, to our families, and then poor implementation. So we're at a place now where our teachers are confused. I mean, some schools will be starting next week, and they still are unclear as to what they're going to prepare students for. Because even though we're going to be using what are called our PASS, our former Oklahoma standards, ACT tests are still going to be based on the Common Core. So we've got some issues to work out.
How do you want to measure whether or not we're doing well? You know, what's fair?
Well, I think that what is success for one school might be different for another school. It certainly isn't the excessive testing that we're doing with children now. We have an all-time high of dropouts in the state, and particularly in our inner cities where these students are being tested again and again, and the higher the level, the more testing the students have to endure. So testing as a tool is to give information to the teacher how to adjust the instruction, for feedback to the parents and feedback to the student, and for the administrator to see where resources need to be placed and to see where we need professional development. So we have implemented a number of mandates that are keeping teachers and schools and school boards and communities from doing the things they know will work. But I certainly think school climate has to be a part of that. How safe do children feel? Do they want to come to school? Do they have a love of learning? And quite simply, there are many things that cannot be quantified in a high quality school. But certainly we have to be held accountable for test results, just not a test as often as we're doing it.
All right, well, we like to end all of our candidate shows with an opportunity for the candidate to either look in the camera or to look at us and just tell people why they should vote for you on the upcoming election day.
Okay. Well, I believe that I'm the best qualified candidate. I believe that I know that I understand the issues that are facing Oklahoma education and our children. I have made all my decisions in the past based on what's best for children. I will be a champion for the children of Oklahoma. I'm principle-centered, and I know where my true north is. I do not have any special interest groups supporting me. My special interest group are the children of Oklahoma.
One thing that, thank you very much. One thing that caught my attention was your suggestion that we ought to restore local control. That suggests we used to have local control, don't anymore. But what do you mean by local control, and how would it be restored?
Sure. Well, local control to me means that teachers, administrators, school boards, and parents are making decisions that are best for individual children, that it's not coming from the State Department of Education or from the government to tell them what's in the best interest of a student. We are treating many of our special needs children in a way that borderlines abuse. We are not doing the things by them that we should be doing, forcing them to take tests, forcing young people in special education classes that are just learning their multiplication tables to take Algebra 1 so they can pass the Algebra 1 test instead of doing what is best for that student. So we've taken that away. We're not really able to use the common sense that we once had. We're using this cookie cutter, one size fits all. So to me, local control means giving teachers, parents, and administrators and school boards the right to make decisions based on what is best for an individual child.
Less than a minute to go. In both Oklahoma City and Tulsa, the inner city district has language issues, especially with a large number of Hispanics taking place in those inner cities.
Right.
How do you deal with that? Do you have answers?
Well, many of our children, we have about 86% Hispanic at Aztec, and the majority of the children speak Spanish. The issue is often in dealing with their parents, being able to communicate with them. So I think hiring more secretaries and school counselors that can speak Spanish so that they can relate and talk to the parents and communicate and be that bridge between. And the students themselves can actually help. But we're hoping to get more of our students going into education and into positions so that in the future we will not have that huge gap.
All right, and that's going to have to do it for this show. Dr. Deskin, thank you for running. We always need good candidates.
Thank you.
Remind us when Election Day is?
August the 26th.
All right, Kent and I'll have a final word when we get back.
The human body, an amazing machine. What we're capable of is astonishing. If we look to what makes us human, we find that life is more than a heartbeat, and hope is more than an idea. That knowledge moves us forward, and our community keeps us together. OU medicine is at its heart, keeping Oklahoma alive and well.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
I really think people are so unaware of the number of kids waiting just in Oklahoma. And I think if more people knew that those children were out there waiting, I think that just by the way we live our lives and the people we talk to, that maybe we can help encourage adoption from Oklahoma.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information. And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
We're back on the set of The Verdict. We're wrapping up the show with Freda Deskin, who is running for State School Superintendent.
Yes, we hope you find it interesting to hear from this candidate and to see what her platform is, what she intends to do if elected. And we hope to give you a contrast when next week we bring you Dr. John Cox, who is her opponent in the runoff. That way you'll, I hope, be well informed when you go to the polls if you're voting on the Democratic side. Information on Freda's campaign can be found on the internet. Her website is deskinforkids.com. That's DESKINFORKIDS.com. She also has a Facebook page, Freda Deskin for State Superintendent. And there's one more website I'd like to draw your attention to, and that's ours, theverdict.tv. You can go on our website and tell us about a guest that you'd like to see on an upcoming edition, or tell us about a topic you'd like to see discussed. And Kent, we're going to have some more candidates coming up after John Cox. We'll get into State Senate seat number 40. Yes, we'll get the two Republican contenders for the primary or runoff election. That's all coming up at the end of August. So for Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. Thank you for joining us on The Verdict. We'll see you next week with another show.